One Piece chapter 1083 is out and we have a new devil fruit, a whole heap of action, and beginnings of what happened in the Mary Joie during the Reverie. I'll be spoiling it in its entirety, so if you haven't read it, now is your chance. I'll wait here. A few cool things happen in this chapter, and I want to begin with the name reveal of God's Knights. So Dragon attempts to calm down Ivankov, who's celebrating the recent victories of the Revolutionary Army. Despite their recent successes though, Dragon states that the real battle is going to begin when they mobilize God's Knights. And we get a silhouette of them that includes 9 people. So does that mean that each Straw Hat is going to go head to head with one, or maybe it'll be a similar situation as the Flying Six in Wano? And is it just me, or does the one in the front look like Shanks? There's been rumors in the community that Shanks may be a Celestial Dragon for years at this point. And would it be so hard to believe that they have some dirt on him, or he owes them something so valuable that he would become some like elite level Shichibukai? Or I guess you'd call it like a Kubukai because there's 9 of them. This chapter begins right where the last one left off, with Sabo, Dragon, and Ivankov having a private meeting at the Revolutionary Army headquarters. Sabo explains they actually had 3 objectives in mind when they infiltrated Mary Joie, and were actually successful of all 3. These were to officially and publicly declare war on the world government and Celestial Dragons by destroying their symbol, much like the Straw Hats did at Enies Lobby. That symbol should look very familiar to you, as it's what they brand their slaves with. So like we've seen it on Jinbei, on Arlong, on the Serpent Sisters from the Kuja Kingdom. The second objective of the mission was to rescue Kuma, which they completed, as we know, but unfortunately, Kuma hasn't really been himself. He sent himself right back soon after. Imagine how pissed off you'd be seeing Kuma slap himself back to the Red Line after going to such troubles to save him. The third objective was to release as many slaves as possible, and in the escape scene that takes up a large chunk of this chapter, we can see that the Revolutionary Army is well organized and had some escape vessels on the east side of the island just waiting to pick everyone up. They said they had 3 objectives, but clearly they had a 4th one as well, which was to destroy any of the food stores that the Celestial Dragons had. We find out that the Revolutionary Army really isn't playing around. They're not just a bunch of rebels that are trying to take out little navy vessels here and there. No, they have a worldwide, coordinated effort of kingdoms and islands that are systematically fighting back against the oppressive world government. Dragon and the Revolutionary Army successfully triggered uprisings in 8 nations. One of them unfortunately ended up being completely obliterated off the face of the earth, but you gotta crack a few eggs to make an omelette, right? So when I say the Dragon and the RA aren't playing around, what do I mean? Well, these 8 nations all pledged they will no longer pay the celestial tribute to the world government. That's like the monthly tithes or whatever that help fund the lifestyle of these jerks. They also said that they'll stop the exploitative export of their resources. So what this means is that minerals, lumber, glass, steel, kairoseki, any of these materials that are native to these 7 nations will no longer be sent to the world government, thus further tightening a stranglehold on them and their own resources. Ivankov goes on to tell us that the army is staging guerrilla warfare on government supply carriers all over the world to stop any goodies from getting up to the very hard to reach Mary Joie on top of the Red Line. So at this point, seeing Ivankov getting all excited and standing on chairs saying hee-haw brings me back to watching the anime for Impel Down. I didn't read back then, I was only watching. I actually didn't like him at first, but oh boy has he grown on me. Stopping food and supplies from reaching the Celestial Dragons is also a symbolic win for the Revolutionary Army, because while it will definitely affect their, morale and physical health via the lack of food, it's also giving them a taste of what it's like to live in poverty and to go hungry. So it's just a nice juxtaposition for the position they've put all the civilians in for decades. Despite his fiery devil fruit, Sabo has a line here that is cold as ice when he says that he can live with the way the King Cobra of Alabasta died if it means the flames of rebellion will be fueled. It's a rare take into the depth of Sabo and shows just how much his early childhood and being raised around those people has affected him. I wonder what his relationship with Dragon is really like. I wonder if Dragon saw potential and views Sabo as a weapon that he can use, or whether he views him as a son. Maybe both. Or maybe it started one way when Sabo was a child and then went down another direction. It could have gone either way. Regardless, Sabo is stone cold, and we can see that he's clearly not scared to accept sacrifices to bring down the world government and the Celestial Dragons. Sabo begins to tell the story of what happened on that faithful day in Mary Joie, the day that would end with the death of King Cobra. And we see a scene of destruction and explosions as the food storehouse blows up in flames, as the Celestial Dragons are all running for their lives. So every one of these dragons is just drawn so disgustingly. Like, they look revolting. I hate them. I hate them all so much. Their haircuts are gross, their teeth and faces are gross, their mouths, their snotty noses. Oda really just outdoes himself every time these jokes get onto the page. The first captain we see is Karasu, and he's so cool. We get the name of his devil fruit too, which is the Soot Soot fruit, and it is a Logia, which explains quite a bit. We already know he uses it to make little crows and carry messages and perform ranged attacks, but in this chapter we get to see some awesome melee attacks from him too. It's kind of similar to Brook's signature move, how he'll walk behind them, he's already there and he goes, oh, I've already cut you. Karasu, his character design is just so badass. Like, I've always been a fan of Dofi and Corazon's fluffy jackets, and here we've got another awesome one that also gets cool Logia feats too. The 4 captains are working as a team to fulfill the 3 or 4, depending how you count them, objectives that they set out from the beginning. And it's great to see this so soon after we saw a team of Marines working together in a similar way on Hachinosu recently. This gives the Revolutionary Army a sort of teamwork feat that lets us know that despite the less than official titles, despite the lack of uniforms, these guys form a legit army and have had training and know how to cooperate and work together like any navy does, any army does. They're keeping Fujitora and Ryoku at bay, but it is made very clear to us that the admirals are fighting with a heavy handicap, a heavy disadvantage by being in the middle of the city full of celestial dragons. Fujitora can't use his AoE meteors and gravity without destroying the buildings and causing mass collateral damage, and Ryokugyo is damaging everyone around him just by accident with his giant size and large attacks. The Revolutionary Army captains, however, know this and use it to their advantage, which makes perfect sense too. And in the middle of all this we see CP9! I would love to see them in action again. Maybe Jabara has also awakened his devil fruit. That would be dope. Especially since he was so close behind Kaku in power level. But yes, right at the end of the chapter, we see King Cobra about to have an audience with the 5 elders. So what does he want to talk about? Does it maybe have something to do with Alabasta removing itself and revoking its pledge of allegiance to the world government, maybe? Is that how he ended up getting killed? Who knows? He's also looking very sick. He's coughing a lot. Now, earlier in the chapter, we see the picture of Sabo standing over the body of Cobra. This was, of course, posted on the front page of the news. And the only other thing we can see from here is part of Cobra's wheelchair and the floor tiles. So it could be in the chamber with the 5 elders, but we can't be sure just yet. We need one more chapter. And guess what? Next week, there's no break. And I've got a feeling we're going to be jumping right back into this and finally finding out what happened. I know what I want, and that's more Karasu. What is it about those Plague Doctor masks that are always so cool, hey? Like Overhaul in My Hero. That was an awesome design too. I think you just chuck a mask on them and they look badass. Maybe that's just me. Alright guys, that's it for me. If you've watched this far, then please consider leaving a comment. I'll reply. Or even subscribing. Thank you all so much, and I will see you next week for the next chapter.